In a continuation of its crackdown on so-called sanctuary cities and states, the New York Times reports the Trump administration is planning to use agents from an elite tactical unit known as BORTAC to assist immigration and customs enforcement agents. Joining us now for more on this Border Patrol SWAT team and the sanctuary issue is Caitlin Dickerson, a national immigration reporter for the New York Times. So what is BORTAC, first of all?
So BORTAC, as you said, it's an elite portion of the Border Patrol. They really act like a SWAT team. They're people who are chosen from individual Border Patrol units. They undergo specific training. It's similar to Army Rangers or to Special Forces. They're sniper certified. They have grenades. They're called flashbangs that can obscure what you can see when they break into your home. You know, they carry large weapons. So they're very much a militaristic squad from within the Border Patrol.
What do they usually do compared to what they're about to do?
Typically, they're deployed both within the United States and internationally on these very high stakes and high risk busts. So most famously, Americans will remember it was BORTAC agents who broke into the home where Elian Gonzalez was being held in the year 2000, the young boy who was embroiled in an international asylum scandal, really. And, you saw a BORTAC agent with a big gun sort of seize the boy from his uncle. But they also, now more commonly, they're breaking into stash houses that smuggling organizations are running. So these are places that are known to be full of drugs and weapons and dangerous people, and they're breaking down the door to get them out.
So the optics of Elian Gonzalez were, well, depending on what side of the political persuasion you were very different and not so great. Does ICE know about that? Are they conscious of the optics of highly militarized stuff going and doing what would be otherwise normal ICE arrests?
Absolutely. I mean, I've covered this beat, predating this administration, and optics is always a consideration when it comes to immigration or really any policy decision. So yes, I mean, undocumented immigrants are on high alert at this point. They know exactly what ICE agents wear, and they're going to notice when they see people wearing not a typical ICE uniform, but a SWAT type uniform outside their home, if that's the way that the BORTAC officers are dressed when they go out on this operation. And again, something that I've seen over time is that there's immigration enforcement through arrests, but governments know, and not just this administration, that there's also enforcement through fear. It is a strategy. I mean, the hope of those who've chosen to employ it, and we're seeing it here, is that you continue to make this country less hospitable to people who are not here with legal status. And the goal there is, if not to get them to leave on their own, to at least discourage others from following behind them. So that's absolutely a consideration here.
Now, this is just the latest in a series of kind of engagements the Department of Justice, the president, et cetera, has been taking against these so-called sanctuary cities. Just this week, William Barr said that we are going to escalate.
Right.
So this is one of those escalations. And we also had, a meeting between Andrew Cuomo and President Trump.
Right. This is the continuation of a battle that began in January of 2017 when President Trump took office, even earlier in 2016. I mean, he campaigned on the idea of cracking down on sanctuary jurisdictions, and you've seen the battle ebb and flow a little bit. A lot of it has come out of the Justice Department, and as we know, they've been a little busy, but we're in an election year, and so we are seeing an escalation, and the administration is being open about that. They've filed subpoenas in New York to get access to information about immigrants who are being held in criminal custody, who immigration officials knew were not going to be handed over. So they're trying to figure out ways to get around these policies that block police from working with immigration authorities. Just this week, the administration filed lawsuits again against local governments in Washington State, in New Jersey. So they're trying a bunch of different tactics at the moment. Global entry being, I think, the one that has been most surprising to people, perhaps up until this story we're talking about now, because this is something that affects New Yorkers, not just immigrants, but native-born Americans, native-born New Yorkers who are now going to be blocked from enrolling in this global entry program through DHS. So they're getting creative and finding ways to really crack down and try to counteract these sanctuary policies.
So is the city of San Francisco or Atlanta or Houston or Chicago or New York, are they planning to take any steps to try to figure this out? I mean, because this is a federal jurisdiction, the government has the right to put these agents into place. These are already police departments that are not cooperating with the federal government. So what happens here if you have possibly ICE agents surrounded by what looks like a SWAT team coming into a residential neighborhood to try to pick somebody up?
Our reporting reporting has shown that this is within the authority of the federal government. I think what we've seen up until this point is that when local mayors get involved and they don't like the enforcement tactics of the administration, they make a real effort to let people know so that they don't come outside. And it's important to point out in this case, we talked about all those capabilities that the BORTAC agents have, but a lot of them they won't be able to use because unlike their typical work, in this case, they're enforcing civil immigration infractions. So that means they don't have the legal ability to break into someone's home or force their way into their place of work to try to arrest them. They're still very much going to be limited. And so local governments and all, mayors of places like San Francisco and also immigrant advocacy groups have gone a long way to try to educate the undocumented about their rights as a way to try to diminish the success of an operation like this one.
And is there a timeline or a goal associated with this kind of escalation?
This particular operation is planned for 3 months, and a lot of times the arrests happen on weekends. They happen in the middle of the night, they happen early in the morning, and I think what I can expect is that they're going to assess how it goes. It could go shorter, it could go longer. I mean, it's a real question, again, how successful this is going to be because the undocumented communities across the country are so much on alert. But I can guarantee that, when the operation ends, I'm going to get a press release pointing out, look at this person who has a violent criminal record who we arrested, that person who's been deported many times who we arrested. The thing that we want to pay attention to as well as reporters are the collateral arrests, which are becoming more and more common. So that's where essentially someone's in the wrong place at the wrong time, right? These ICE agents are targeting people who they believe to be criminals, who they believe to be, important targets for deportation. But if you're in someone's house when they're being arrested or you're at their place of work when they're being arrested, you could also be swept up in the enforcement net, and that will absolutely be the case with this operation.
All right, Caitlin Dickerson of the New York Times, thanks so much.
Thank you.